Today on Stock Charts in Focus, we're showing you how easy it can be to bring more charts into your process. Now, specifically, we're going to take a look at a couple of the different ways to take a chart list full of a ton of different symbols and apply different chart styles to all the symbols in that list. Of course, you can build chart styles with different indicators, different settings, different color schemes, different time frames. So this is going to make it even easier to apply those different chart templates to a list of symbols on the fly without having to type in one at a time. Gonna do it in SharpCharts, gonna do it in ACP. So we got lots to cover on the show today. Of course, you know what it is. It's all new. It's all here. It's Stock Charts in Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show, Stock Charts in Focus. Of course, our product focus show here on the channel, where we dig into the site, dive into the tools, show you around the features, and ultimately help you get more value out of Stock Charts. That's our mission here every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, up on the live channel, also up on our YouTube channel after that, and the on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com. Lots of ways to watch. My name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. As always, fantastic to be back with you for another show. This one is going to be a fun one. It's a feature that I love to show people, kind of a workflow booster that I love to show people. And of course, as we do so often on this show, this is one that I use in my own process every single day and every single week. So always love to show it to people. Now, chart styles and chart lists are two incredibly important concepts on Stock Charts. Of course, chart styles are kind of those chart templates that you have, right? You can take all those different settings, the sets of indicators, the position, the type of chart, the time frame, all of that can get packaged up into what we call a chart style. You can think of them really as chart templates. You also have chart lists on the site. You have all of these different lists that you can save your symbols into, whether it's a watch list, whether it's the stocks and funds that you own in your own portfolio, even just kind of a market evaluation list, or things like all the S&P 500 members. You got lots and lots of different uses for chart lists. Now, when you save a symbol into a chart list, it gets saved with one specific chart style. That chart itself has all of those different settings. And so when you save that into one of your chart lists, by default, it's going to have some kind of chart style associated with it. Now, oftentimes, though, if you're like me, you've got a list of symbols. Let's say it's your watch list or your portfolio list. You got a list of symbols that you want to run through. You might want to think about those different symbols using some different charts, right? You might have a daily chart, and that's kind of your primary view. But let's take that list and look at everything from a weekly chart perspective. Or let's take that chart and that full chart list and look at all of those symbols with a rate of change indicator on them. You might want to look at different charts at different times for the same set of symbols that you've saved into a chart list. So on the show today, that's exactly what we're going to show you how to do. We're going to show you how to do this in SharpCharts and in ACP. There are a couple different ways to do this. You're going to see how easy it is to kind of change up your chart list on the fly, apply some different settings, review those charts, and then get back to what you had at the very beginning. So without further ado, let's jump over to the site, take a look. So starting off our whirlwind tour of Stock Charts today, we are going to begin on the dashboard. This is the first page you see when you log in. And as I always like to remember, I always like to remind people, it's kind of the heart and soul of Stock Charts, really. I like to say that. Also, though, gives you great quick access to your chart lists. So I'm going to hit this big chart list button right up at the top of the page. And you can see that that's taken me right down to all of my chart lists. Now, for the sake of today's show, I've created what I'm calling a sample watch list. And we've put 100 stocks in that list. It's going to be all the stocks from the S&P 100. We're going to do this in SharpCharts, then we'll jump over to ACP, and we're going to do a very similar thing over there. So the first thing that I want to show you guys, let's take a look at the charts that are in this list. We'll jump over to chart list view, for instance. Here we are in this list, and you can see that these are all of the symbols that are saved into this list. We can actually pull up a list of all those symbols right here just to give you a sense of kind of what's in here. But most importantly, we've got all of these different charts, and you can see that all these charts are going to look the same. This is what's called my default chart style. So when I create this chart list, it's going to use my default chart style, the settings that I've sort of picked out as my default. I've got things like the Murphy color scheme. I've got a price relative line up here at the top, couple of moving averages, volume bars, candlesticks, and a 1.5 year time frame. We've talked about that a little bit. I've also got something up here at the top called the full quote. So all of those different settings are on, as you can see, all of these different charts. And these are all daily charts, like I said, looking back at the last 1.5 years worth of data. Let's say this is my watch list and I'm trying to sort of pick and choose which ones I really care about, which ones are sort of going to make it to the next level in my process. Maybe, the ones that I'm going to actually start to think about placing a trade on. Well, one thing that I might want to do is look at all these 100 stocks with a different set of indicators. Maybe I want to drill down, like we're saying, into something like rate of change, or maybe I want to add something crazy like the parabolic SAR to all of these. Maybe I just want to look at them on a weekly chart. That's another important part of my process. I like to compare not just the daily charts, but also see how everything looks on the weekly chart. So if we wanted to take this entire chart list and apply some new settings to everything in the list, we've actually got two different ways that we can do that here in SharpCharts. The first one, we're going to take our chart list. Again, we're looking at that sample watch list right now, and we're going to navigate over to the edit view. Now we got two ways to get there. We can hit this little pencil, or we can open up that menu and jump over to the edit page. So from the edit page, you have a ton of different things that you can do on this page. Of course, basic things like updating the chart list name, adding symbols. If you want to share it with a friend, you've even got some of those things. And then some of the key actions that you've got if you want to move things between different lists. Let's say you wanted to move Apple or merge it or copy it into another chart list. You've got some of those different actions up here. You can even delete things right from this list. Of course, you can change names. You can also add comments from the edit view. It's a very, very powerful page. One of the key features, though, that this also allows you to do is change your chart style for any of the charts in the list. So if you've saved a different chart style to your account, let's say you've saved a weekly chart style instead of the daily, you can go ahead and apply that chart style to everything in the list in just a couple of clicks. That's going to take that chart list. It's going to save everything with a different chart style. So you can review that whole chart list with the weekly charts or a different set of indicators, whatever you want to use this for. And then once you're ready, you can do the whole process in reverse. You can save all those charts again with the original chart style to kind of get back to your default view. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to take this list. I'm going to select all from the very top, and I'm going to look for that purple button. Now, when I give that a click, you're going to see that this says apply chart style. If you want to apply a new chart style to all of the selected charts, all you got to do is select it from the menu. This is going to show you all of the chart styles that you've saved to your own account. So the first step, even before this, which we could have taken a look at, is to actually create some of these chart styles. But assuming that you already have the ones that you've created for yourself, you've got those saved to your account, this is going to make it really easy to pull those up. So let's say I wanted to apply a long-term weekly view to all of these charts. You can see that I've got sort of my own naming convention in here. You're probably going to have something a little bit different, but I've got weekly. I call this my level 2 weekly chart, and you can see that this is the 15-year version. So this is going to be 15-year weekly charts for everything in this list. When I go ahead and hit apply, it's going to sort of recalculate there. And now when we jump back over to something like chart list view and we can actually see these charts, you'll see that some of the settings look pretty similar, the color scheme, some of the indicators that are on there, but we're looking at 15 years now worth of weekly data, and that's going to be applied to everything in this list. Also brings in the RSI down at the bottom, our moving averages change a little bit, so these are different charts. So now I can go ahead and scroll through this chart list, and I'm looking at all of the same symbols, but with a different set of indicators. I can now start to say, okay, which ones look good on the weekly, which ones look kind of ugly on the weekly. We've got some big winners in here like Accenture, that looks fantastic. Look at that trend over the last 15 years, just a thing of beauty. We've got some well, actually this is a strong chart list here. Okay, we get down to something like AIG, We might say, oh, on the weekly, on the long-term weekly, this is an ugly one, so we can go ahead and kick that one out, delete that one from the list. Whatever we want to do, however you want to start to use these tools, these are kind of some of the ways that I do it. So I'll move between different sets of sort of chart templates, indicators, timeframes, those kinds of things, and I'll use that to start to filter down some of my watch lists. Also a fantastic resource though for looking at your portfolio. Let's say you've saved that into a chart list, looking at your portfolio from different timeframes, different sets of indicators, different views, anything that you want to do, you can use these tools to sort of manipulate that chart list on the fly. So as you can see, all of these charts have now changed over to be 15-year charts. Makes it really easy. Now, again, I said that we can sort of do this in reverse. So if we go back over to that edit page, once we're done sort of reviewing all of those charts with that new chart style, we can do the exact same thing in reverse. We select all, we hit that purple button, we jump over here, and what I was using originally was my level 1 chart, equity daily level 1. So when we apply that, we jump back over to chart list view now. I know I'm clicking around pretty quickly, but if you're following along, you can see that we're right back to kind of where we started. We've now got all of those charts back to our 1.5-year daily chart with the same set of indicators that we started with. So using that apply chart style button from the edit page makes it incredibly easy to move your charts from the same list through a couple of different settings sort of on the fly. You can always get things back to kind of where they started by going ahead and applying the original chart style to all those charts as well. Now there's one other creative way to do this from SharpCharts though. So we're actually going to jump over to one of the charts in this list. And now you can see that from the SharpCharts workbench, as we call it, we are actually in that exact same chart list. We've got sample watch lists selected at the top of the page, and we're looking at one of the saved charts from that list. Now we're looking at that Apple chart, first one up in the list. So let's say we're going through our workflow and we're adding some new indicators, we're testing some things out, we're playing around with some different tools, some different chart style options. We're sort of setting things up in a different way. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to pull up something like a moving average ribbon. This is a chart style that I've saved to my own account. So looks a little bit crazy there. Let's actually zoom this back out to a 5-year chart on the moving average ribbon. There we go. So now we're playing around with a different look. And we want to do the exact same thing. We want to apply this chart to everything in the list without having to type in one symbol at a time. Because if you click through here, if we click into the next chart, this is the chart that is saved into that chart list, right? This is the settings, the set of settings that have been saved into that list. So if we try to sort of create a new chart on the fly and then click through that list, we haven't saved everything to that chart list. We haven't sort of overwritten anything. So I'm gonna have to do some tricks here to get this chart style to be sort of viewable for everything in the list. If you're following along, that'll make sense in just a second. So let's say we want to view everything in that chart list with this set of settings with that moving average ribbon. There is a little option down here at the bottom that allows you to apply whatever settings are on the workbench to whatever chart list is selected on the workbench on the fly. So this now is a chart style, let's say, that's not actually saved to my account, but I still want to apply these settings to everything in that watch list. What we can do is come down to the bottom of the workbench, we hit apply style to all. It's going to pop up with that little error message, and we are going to go ahead and overwrite everything in this list. Now it's a little bit scary, but you can see that if we now click through the charts in this list, that moving average ribbon style, all of those settings from down here on the workbench, you can actually see them all. Those have been applied to everything in this list. So we can now take sort of a custom crazy on the fly chart, and we can actually use that button down at the bottom of the workbench to temporarily apply that style to everything in the list. We can now review this entire chart list one at a time with that moving average ribbon. So this is kind of a funky chart. Let's say you wanted to do this with something a little more useful. I've been mentioning rate of change. So let's say you've got a rate of change style. You want to look at everything in that chart list with one specific indicator like the rate of change. You can see that we now have that up at the top of this chart. When you pull that up, make sure that the chart list you want is selected from the top of the page. And then come down, hit apply style to all. We're going to click through those menus once again. And you can see that if we now jump back to the start of this list, everything in that list is now using that different set of templates, different set of indicators and settings and colors and all of that. So that chart template, that chart style has now been applied to everything in this list. So this is a great way to take a list of stocks that you're following, you save those into a chart list, and you can actually sort of apply different chart styles, different chart templates on the fly as you go. Very, very easy to do it. Now, once you want to get everything back to the original layout that you had, the original set of chart styles, you could either jump over to the edit page, which you can access right from the top right here, and you could do that same process that we walked through a minute ago, or you could pull up sort of whatever you want as your default view. In this case, I can actually open up this menu. You can see my default chart style there, just like we selected before, that level 1 chart, and I can do the exact same thing. So I make sure that one is pulled up. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom and I am going to apply my default style to everything in the list. And so once again, if we jump back to Apple now, we've applied that chart style once again. So we've kind of gotten back to square one. So this is a trick I love to show people on the workbench. Again, we get this question a lot. You know, I've got some new charts that I want to sort of test out and I want to apply those to a chart list. How can I do that sort of on the fly and see all of these symbols in this chart list with these new settings? This is exactly how you do that from the SharpCharts world. 2 ways, one from the edit page and one from the workbench itself. So now that we've taken a look at how some of these things work in the SharpCharts world, let's jump over to ACP, our advanced charting platform, and take a look at how some of these same ideas can be applied over in ACP. We'll jump over there now. So here we are in ACP, our second charting platform that we have available on the site. Now, if you're not familiar with ACP, this is a sort of a complement to SharpCharts, an alternative to SharpCharts. If you like that static chart look, SharpCharts is there, not going anywhere. Only going to get bigger and better from here. But we also have a more kind of interactive, fluid, flexible, all-in-one charting platform called ACP. Now, what ACP does gives you a lot of sort of dynamic control over your charts. If you want to move things around, for instance, you can drag indicators up and down. Really easy to kind of manipulate your charts on the fly. Also brings in a ton of different tools right into the platform, sort of all in one place. So you've got your chart list here. You can run scans right from ACP. You've got things like the market overview panel to see exactly what's happening out there in the markets. Market movers, symbol summary, you've got a ton of things. You can even trade from ACP down here through our partnership with Tradier Brokerage. And you can even watch StockCharts TV right from the bottom of ACP. So very, very cool. Always love to give people the rundown on kind of what ACP is. We think it's strong to have kind of these two platforms. Again, we're not picking and choosing either one. We want to give you guys as many ways to chart the markets as possible. So if you like that dynamic feel, you've got ACP. If you like that static feel, you've got SharpCharts. So that's the sort of quick background here. Now, the good news is that a lot of the concepts that apply over in SharpCharts also exist over in ACP and vice versa. So the worlds are sort of pretty familiar to each other. So we're going to do the exact same kind of thing for stop one here in ACP. We're going to take a chart list and we're going to apply different chart styles to it. The second stop, though, is going to be a little bit different. We've streamlined that sort of apply chart style process here in ACP in sort of a creative way. So you're going to see that in just a second with something called our load symbol only checkbox. First up, we'll close down our chart list for now. Let's talk about chart lists here in chart styles here in ACP. Over here on the left side, you click that little paintbrush icon. That is where you have access to all of your chart styles or chart templates, if you want to think about them that way. So all of those are available here. We also have samples. And whenever you want to save a new chart style, down at the bottom, hit that big green button. That'll prompt you to save or update an existing chart style in your account. So first and foremost, make sure that you've set up a couple of different chart styles in your ACP world. Now, we're going to jump back over to the right side of the screen, and I've done basically a similar thing. So we're going to open up this sample watch list that's got our 100 stocks in it, just like we had before. We can sort those by symbol or percent change. We've got a couple of different options in here. And just like we had in the SharpCharts world, every symbol that's saved into this list is saved with a specific chart style, with a set of settings that include the chart type, the time frame, the color scheme, the indicators and overlays. All of that good stuff is saved to that symbol in that chart list. So if we click into Apple, for instance, you'll see that this is a very, very similar chart. We've got a similar set of indicators, just like I have in SharpCharts, because I kind of go back and forth between the two worlds. So if we click through this, we can see that this is the sort of chart type that has been saved to all of these symbols. Now, we can do the exact same thing as before. We can actually jump down into what we call the drawer, open up your chart list from that drawer. We can select our sample watch list and navigate over to the Edit tab. So we can close down that sidebar for just a minute. Here in the Edit tab within the drawer for that chart list, you've got the exact same option. We can select everything from this list, and we can look for that purple button, apply a specific chart style to everything in this list. So if we wanted to do something like, for instance, our moving average ribbon, we'll go back to that one. We can quickly apply that style to everything in this list. Now, when we come back over to our chart list sidebar, if we give this a click, you'll see that that chart has changed and is now using that moving average ribbon style. Everything in this list has now changed to use that alternative chart style. So again, we could use this to apply different time frames. We could use this to apply different sets of indicators, do something crazy like add a moving average ribbon as we've got here. We've got lots of different sort of options for how this can be used down here in the drawer. And when we want to get back to our starting place, again, we do the exact same thing. We check everything in the list, hit that purple button, look for our defaults, and we can apply that in just a quick click. Now, when we hit Apple again, we're going to be back to kind of where we started with that same set of tools and indicators that we had at the beginning. So same concept applies here in ACP. Look for that edit drawer, use that apply chart style option to apply different chart styles to a full list on the fly. But there's one other creative way that you can do this without having to save anything in ACP. So a little bit complex to explain. Follow with me here. Again, we're going to review this one more time. Everything in this chart list has been saved with a specific set of indicators and color scheme and time frame, chart type. All of that good stuff is saved to all of the charts in this list. So as I click through, you can see that this is what these charts look like. Same set of tools and indicators for all of them. If we come over to my styles, and maybe we come down actually just for fun, we'll come to something crazy like let's do electric blue. We've got a crazy chart up on the screen now that looks totally different set of tools and indicators. Let's say we're playing around with a crazy chart style like this, or we've got some other tools that we want to take advantage of, just like we did before with the rate of change. If we create a chart on the screen here in ACP, and we then want to review all of the charts in a specific chart list with that set of tools and indicators and overlays and settings, but we don't want to have to resave or overwrite anything, we've got a little option in ACP that makes that incredibly easy. In either the drawer or in the sidebar, you can look for that load symbol only checkbox, give that a click, and what that's going to tell ACP to do is only load the symbol into the charting space when you click on anything from a chart list. We're going to ignore all of the saved settings that have actually been saved to that symbol in that chart list, and we're just going to pull in the symbol. So when we give Apple a click now, you can see that the only thing that's going to get applied is the symbol. Apple has now been applied to that crazy chart that we have in the middle. We can click through this list now, and we're using the exact same set of indicators and overlays and positions and settings, and we haven't actually had to resave anything. We're just kind of doing this on the fly. So this is great if you want to view, for instance, like we were doing before, if you want to take a chart list full of daily charts and review all of those from a weekly perspective, you can actually do that even easier here in ACP by taking advantage of that load symbol only checkbox. So if we turn that off and we get back to Apple, for instance, you can see that now that I've turned the load symbol only checkbox off and I've clicked anything in this list, if we click down to Broadcom, for instance, you can see that now it is going to pull in all of those saved settings from that chart and put those onto the screen. So it makes it incredibly easy to work with your chart list here in ACP, kind of moving through different sets of indicators and overlays and settings, different chart templates or chart styles here in ACP. Again, I use this all the time. For instance, I'll close down sample styles. I'll pull up something like a weekly chart, and I can then review all of these symbols in this list, again, from a weekly perspective without having to actually go and resave anything. So it's not going to overwrite any of my changes, isn't going to overwrite or impact any of my annotations, those kinds of things. Just really, really easy to sort of quickly flip over to a weekly chart on the screen and then run through an entire chart list of symbols that I'm following, or even things that I own in my my positions chart list, thanks to that load symbol only checkbox. And again, you have that also in the drawer. So if you like to actually work with your chart list out of the drawer instead of out of the sidebar, you've got the same thing. Look for that load symbol only checkbox. You've got that across a couple of these different tabs actually. So on the performance view as well, and even here on the edit page, you've got load symbol only. So really, really nice and easy to work with different charts here in ACP, thanks to that load symbol only checkbox. So that is going to do it for us on the show today. I want to thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Stock Charts in Focus. Of course, our product focus show here on the channel, where we dig into the site, dive into tools, show you around the different features of the site, and ultimately try to help you get more value out of Stock Charts. That's our mission here every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, up on the live channel. Also up on our YouTube channel after that, and of course the on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com as well. Lots of ways to watch. My name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. Wonderful to be with you as always. I will see you again very soon for another edition of Stock Charts in Focus. We'll have more fun hitting charts, hitting tools, seeing things in action, and playing around with all the different resources available on the Stock Charts website. Until then, though, chart on, my friends.